Buddy here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna officially call this, meeting to order. And, the first item number 3 is the approval of the agenda. I hope everybody got a copy of the agenda one way or the other. And we just need a motion to approve the agenda.
I so move.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded approval of the agenda. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? In addition, with that agenda came the minutes from, the July meeting.
Two of them. Yeah, the two July meetings.
Okay, both agendas, you should have a copy of both agendas. And I think we're gonna approve of both, not the agenda, the minutes, last two meetings. And I guess everybody had a chance to review it. And if that's the case, I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll move it.
Second.
Been moved and seconded approval of the minutes without any alteration. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the two minutes have been approved for July 8th and 28th. And at this point, do we have any citizen comment? No? Okay, item number 6, Mr. Patrick Moore is available.
He's on the screen.
Well, how you doing, Mr. Moore?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. I hope you all are. My name is Patrick Moore. I'm a project manager with the Open Space Institute in Charleston, South Carolina. It's good to be with y'all. I'm going to do my best to share my screen here. Give me just one sec. I think this gets me there. All right. Can everybody see that?
Nope.
Okay. Great. All right, everybody good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So some of you may have heard about the Open Space Institute. Others of you may not have. We've been in South Carolina about 7 years, and we are a land trust that is based in New York and is approaching its 50th anniversary. We've protected more than 2.2 million acres from Maine to Florida. We started in New York, and the Wallace family, who is the Reader's Digest family, established a large endowment for OSI early in their tenure, and that has allowed OSI to expand from Maine to Florida. Today, I'd like to just cover who we are and what we do and why we do it, and how we prioritize where we place our conservation capital, and then go from the conceptual to the specific and talk about some project examples that are in y'all's backyard, and then just briefly look forward because there's a lot of exciting things going on in South Carolina from the land acquisition, easement acquisition standpoint. And we don't have time to go deep on all of them, but they're certainly all worth mentioning. OSI is a land trust like the other land trusts that you know, but unlike the other land trusts, we do not hold easements in South Carolina. We are focused on fee acquisition. That is our niche in the landscape. We buy the land and then get it fee simple title into the hands of a public entity that will make it public. 99.9% of our 26,000 acres are in public hands or will be in public hands. And so we are a land trust, but we're very focused on the fee simple side of things, finding every pot of money we can at the state, local, and federal level, and every takeout partner we can at the local, state, and federal level, and playing that matchmaking game. We've done tracts that are owned by cities and counties. At the state level, they're owned usually by DNR, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, or the Forestry Commission. And then at the federal level, they're usually owned by the U.S. Forest Service, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, or the National Park Service. We have a broad array of partners with a relatively small staff. There's 3.5 of us in Charleston, one in Beaufort, North Carolina, and one in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Our presence here was not accidental or by chance. It was the strategic addition of acquisition capacity. It was the recognition that the threat parcels going on the market that should go to conservation were coming on the market faster than existing funding sources and bureaucracies were equipped to handle them. I could sort of editorialize and summarize it that way. And then an entity was needed to come in and be able to pick these parcels up with an ability to move quickly and nimbly to prevent them being sold before the ultimate takeout entities, local, state, and federal agencies could act. So there's a lot going on this map. This is an incredible map. It is the South Carolina Conservation Priority Model Map. And I believe that Director West spoke to y'all when it was being formulated. I'm not sure if you've seen the final product. Some of you may have, but essentially red means high priority and orange means medium priority. And it's not just habitat. They look at all the data layers that you would want to look at when establishing conservation priority. It is habitat, rare, threatened, endangered species, connectivity, water quality importance, cultural resources, and many, many more data layers that the GIS people could tell you all about that go into setting these priorities. Consultation with every conceivable acronym, state and federal resource agency you can imagine. And you can zoom in, you can download the data layers and zoom in down to the parcel level to really evaluate, how a particular parcel plays in the larger conservation state picture. So people say to OSI, how do you pick where you spend your money? And this map is the best answer I can give. This is a map of where our closed and in progress projects are across the state. I don't want to make it busy, but I'm gonna flip back and forth. And what you'll notice is where you see the existing areas of public land, which is the green, and often where you see the high priority red, the mountains, the southern forest, around the riverine floodplains in Congaree National Park in the Midlands, and a tremendous amount of acreage in the coastal plain. It corresponds very closely with where you see our project dots. So we do have a lot of acquisition expertise, but our priorities are largely set by the PhDs and biologists who, really have gone deep on prioritization. Of all the projects that I listed in the OSI Southeast by the Numbers initial slide, what are the different types that we do? About a quarter of them are all federal. The funding source would be all federal. So a lot of these are land and water conservation fund deals, LWCF, you'll hear the acronym. Those are the royalties from offshore drilling. And the Forest Service spends a lot of that money to buy holdings. So that's an example of an all federal deal. About a quarter state deals. A lot of those are to DNR, PRT, or the Forestry Commission. And we'll talk about an example, the Tillman Tract here in just a second of a state deal. About a third of what we do are mitigation deals. These are compensatory wetland mitigation, where somebody needs to fill wetlands. Usually it's Boeing or a big greenfield manufacturer, Boeing, Mercedes, the rail line to Volvo, South Carolina DOT road projects, big public interest projects, and they need to go and buy and protect land as offsets for their impacts, and that's about a third. And then 12% is hybrid. And a lot of time, these are the ones that end up as local parks with Georgetown County or the city of North Charleston, or usually smaller on an acreage basis projects. Because we coordinate so extensively with the other agencies and programs and stakeholders, it won't surprise you to know that our themes for acquisition closely align with probably a lot of other themes. Habitat protection, growth management, equitable access, and resilience, flooding, and water quality are the big picture themes that drive the map, which drives us on a parcel-to-parcel basis. So going from the history and the big picture, concepts that drive us to specific examples in your backyard, the most exciting thing, there's a lot of exciting things, but in my mind, the most exciting thing is the Southern Coastal Biodiversity Project, which is a 17,000 acre or more. These are back of the envelope numbers because things are developing so quickly. It could end up being a $20 million or more assemblage where Jasper, Hampton, and Beaufort counties come together. This is the land acquisition implementation phase, in my mind, of the longstanding studies and plans we've all been working on for 20 years, right? Every study we've ever done about growth management and protecting Port Royal Sound and all the other things that are sitting on the shelf, protecting this land is a foundational part of the answer for most, if not all, of those plans. And most exciting is that there's money to do this. There are 8 sources at least of local, state, and federal funding that can be leveraged with each other so that nobody is paying full freight for the effort. And that leverage is a theme that I should harp on more than I do, right? If you find yourself paying for something all by yourself, let us help you find somebody else to help pay for it because there's a lot of leverage out there. So this is a specific OSI project in orange here. I think you can see my arrow. This is the Slater Tract. It's about 3,800 acres on the Coosawhatchee River. It feeds right into Port Royal Sound. And I want to show this map for a couple reasons. One is to show the Slater Tract. It's a $16 million acquisition. It went on the market. OSI was able to come in and put together the funding to protect it, and now is working to put together the takeout funding, which will be a combination of state and federal funding. But I know y'all are all familiar with the Greenbelt concepts and the focus area concepts. So you've got the low country low country focus area here and A-space in here. And what's so great in my mind about this gap is the large landowners, right? You know, you've got more than 100,000 acres in the ownership of 8 landowners, which presents opportunities and challenges. But in other parts of the state, we're piecing it together 200 acres at a time. And a 200-acre parcel is the same amount of work as a 10,000-acre parcel. So from a landscape conservation perspective, these large parcels can benefit. And I don't want to in any way imply that OSI has contracts or hopes of a contract on anything but Slater, but wanted to highlight Slater, highlight the large tracts, and highlight the opportunity of the landscape in the headwaters of the Port Royal Sound. This zooms us in a little bit on Slater's in yellow in this one. And my point on this slide is you know, pick your analogy, the mosaic or the patchwork of public and private protected lands that are necessary to protect water quality and quality of life. Purple is the refuge, and then light green are easements, and dark green is other public protected land, state or federal. And so, you know, no reasonable person wants all protected land to be public. That's not affordable or desirable from a number of perspectives. And so just, you know, I know you hear it a lot, but harping on it again, that you can't do it with just public land and you can't do it with just private easements. And coordination and strategic deployment of everyone's capital spends everybody's money more efficiently. Zooming in even closer, this is as close as we're going to get on the Slater Tract, just to show you that it's the blend of fields and forest and the extensive frontage, riverine frontage. And this is envisioned as one of those centerpiece public access tracts that the public who aren't large landowners or even small landowners can come and use, or tourists from all the nearby areas could come and get a freshwater, slower, more rural experience. Slater is the northern stronghold of the gopher tortoise, and if you haven't ever looked into gopher tortoises, they're amazing. They are terrestrial tortoises that burrow, and there are more than 300 species that live in and depend on these burrows, and they like to live where we like to build stuff, from houses to schools to power lines. There is an inherent conflict in their habitat and highest and best use for us. And so there has been a national model for keeping this tortoise off the endangered species list, where private industry has put in hundreds of millions of dollars to protect habitat for these little guys. There are 150 of them that live on Slater. This is about as good of a headline as you get when it starts with "It's magical." Pretty excited about that one. Moving on to the next type of example, the last one was a big ticket, forward looking. We want to start with this amazing track that's also threatened. A lot of what we do is reacting to, right? There'll be an adjacent property or an in-held property that's surrounded by public land that comes up for sale. And if someone were to buy it and do the wrong thing with it, it would, prevent fire management in a longleaf forest or present some other management challenge to a particular species. And so we're able to come in and pick it up and then get it into DNR's hands over time. So this is, for context, Webb Wildlife Center's here. This is the Savannah River intersection of 321 and 601. As you can see, somebody just had, a really sweet hunting and holding and, needed to monetize it, understandably. And what an opportunity to fill in that hole from DNR's perspective. And so we were able to assist. It's cut over now. The Tillman tract is cut over now. This is what it will look like when they're done restoring it. It will be a beautiful and productive wetland like the rest of the preserve. So Tillman and Slater are really good examples of leveraged opportunities in y'all's backyard. Another really exciting thing, and I would respectfully submit one of the most exciting things going on in South Carolina right now, is the new Black River State Park. The Black River is 170 miles long. The prettiest, in my opinion, stretch runs from King Street to Andrews. And everybody talks about the Edisto as the Blackwater River, and the Black River gives the Edisto a run for its money. So if you enjoy spending time on the Edisto, doing any of the things you do there, I encourage you to give the Black a try. This is going to be a state park in a place that really needs it, economically speaking, but also it's the hole in the map. When you look at the state of South Carolina, their state parks pretty much evenly distributed, and this is the area of the state that doesn't have one. So strangely enough, you've got one of the best natural resources in the place without the state park. So it's going to be the first one in 25 years. Each one of these nodes will be individually visitable, if that's a word. You can go there, drive there in your car and fish and swim and picnic, or you can put in Kingstree and paddle node to node and do a multi-day riverine trip, all spending the night within the state park system every night, which is a thing that doesn't exist in South Carolina right now and only exists a couple other places on the eastern seaboard. So that's just one I know is not on the South Coast, but is an example of the way everybody's thinking big in South Carolina conservation-wise. Now, that is not an idea PRT would have been enthusiastic about 10 or 15 years ago. Now, I've been talking a lot, and I'll stop in just a second. But looking forward, there's never been a more exciting time when it comes to land conservation in South Carolina. South Carolina is firing on all cylinders. The Conservation Bank is very effectively acting as the quarterback and bringing in federal dollars, National Coastal Wetlands Grant dollars, and North American Wetland Conservation Act dollars, to the tune of $10 million new dollars a year last year, all told. And so there's a lot of money on the federal side. On the state side, the South Carolina Conservation Bank was made permanent several years ago, which was big news. There is legislation right now to increase that funding. It's called the Conservation and Antiquities Act. And it would, long story short, add more money to the Conservation Bank. The CARES Act money can be spent on tourism. And there was a large settlement related to the Savannah River site that has generated some state revenue. So in the 20 years I've been paying attention, there has never been more money for land conservation at the state level. The state has never been more effective at bringing home the federal bacon, so to speak. And just last year, the Land and Water Conservation Fund was made permanent. And this is those royalties from offshore drilling that for years had been diverted. They're supposed to be allocated for land and they get spent on other stuff like so many funding streams do. And when they made it permanent, they made it impossible to spend it on other things. So this is almost $1 trillion a year that gets split up between state and federal agencies. based on a variety of criteria that will be going into the ground. So unprecedented dollars federally, unprecedented dollars on the state level. There are more rural and critical lands programs on the way. I have high hopes for Berkeley County. You may have been reading some of the headlines about Greenville and the program they've just set up and funded for the first time. So on the local level, there is also increased leverage and funding coming. There's more and better science. I know y'all hear it and discuss it frequently, but why are we spending the limited resources we have where we're spending them? And man, can we answer that question better than we've ever been able to answer it from every angle. They can tell you how many tons of carbon the property in question is going to store for how many years down to the ton. And we've just never been in a better position to compare our priorities before. Flooding is the way a lot of challenges are now, the context within which a lot of challenges are now being discussed. And the state has just set up the South Carolina Floodwater Commission that has been doing incredible work on a number of fronts. And I think you're going to see a lot of work product from that body that lends itself to land conservation being the answer. If you remember a few years ago, we had all the successive years of flooding in Georgetown got hammered. And there was one of them, I can't even remember what year it is, it got so bad, it was so consistent. They evacuated a significant number of people and the water never showed up, which is never a bad thing. You always want to make that mistake and get people out of the way, of course. But there was a lot of discussion about what was wrong with our models and why did we move people when the water didn't come. And it was the floodplains. It was the intact upstream forested floodplains that held more water longer than anybody expected. And it shaved that peak, right? When you see a flood on a graph, it does that. And the floodplain shaved the peak, and that's why it never got as high as they thought it was going to get. So I think you'll see the flooding conversation turn to land conservation as a solution. And after all of that talking, I just wanted to say that we are here as a resource to the board, and we talk to BCOL all the time. They probably get sick of hearing from us, but there is no tangent too tangential. If you would ever need assistance in running anything to the ground, please don't hesitate to reach out. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions.
Mr. Walter, I just want to thank you for that presentation. One of the things I can see that we're in the same business. We're familiar with some of the terminology that you're using, some of the partnership that's been listed, and even the color of your map is the same color that we use. So in saying that, I would like others to ask questions and get clarification on any part of your presentation.
I just want to say thanks to OSI for all the great work for the Slater track. I think one of the things that it brings up is a conversation that comes and goes, but the fact is that protecting the Slater track is an example of protecting property in Jasper County that has direct impacts on Beaufort County. And so I don't want that conversation to be lost. I don't have an answer to it. I just think that we want to be cognizant of that. And maybe one of the things that OSI can continue to do along with the other land trust is to have specific recommendations or situations when they feel like something that might be just across the border would be really instrumental to Beaufort County. So thanks.
Patrick, has your organization worked with rural and critical lands before on some projects for fee simple acquisitions?
We have not. That is a feather we are looking to put in our cap, actually. That's one of the reasons I was enthusiastic about being here today, is we would love to work with y'all and bring some leverage to the table and help y'all accomplish y'all's priorities.
Well, now we know where you live, so we'll be knocking on your door, I'm sure.
Yes. I'm easy to find, and please call. And Chris, to your point, that cross county line benefit, cross jurisdiction benefit is huge, and the science helps talk about that a lot, I think. And the other thing that strikes me is the recreational benefit. When they're done putting it together on an acreage basis, it'll be as big as Congaree National Park. It'll be the biggest, best place to get outside, around. And it's going to be more than just one county, of course.
Yeah, Patrick, Councilwoman Howard has a question.
With all the growth in Jasper County, particularly Hardyville, and houses popping up everywhere, like on Argent and other parts adjacent to Beaufort County, do you know if Jasper County or Hardyville requires any wetlands mitigation or not? I'm not familiar with their regulations, but for their housing developments that are huge, have you been contacted about any wetlands mitigation?
So they do not require wetlands mitigation beyond what the Corps requires, but those housing developments are required to mitigate. None of those developers have reached out to us, but we would be excited to help them offset if there was one that was particularly high profile that maybe they needed, a really good offset to get community support. That's something we're really good at, is finding a high profile wetland that gets the credit that the applicant needs, but also gets people excited about the project.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Just want to follow up on Art's point while we have Patrick as part of our meeting and say that he's right. We do talk regularly, all the land trusts and folks in this business do, which is a wonderful community in South Carolina. I want y'all to feel like an important and meaningful part, because you are. So the way that we achieve this public-private balance, that coordination, that partnership is so important. And we look forward to being able to work with OSI and in the future directly in Beaufort County or in the adjacent areas, because the regionalism of our work is so important. So just like Patrick talked about the map with the public-private patchwork, we're going to be talking more and more about partnerships at the regional level and where we each have our niches and where we can play. I will be consistently encouraging us to do so because of the opportunities that we do have in this landscape that I think you highlighted so well, Patrick. So thank you for sharing that vision with us and for your enthusiasm and your work in regional conservation. The opportunity to build a large protected landscape akin to Congaree National Park is pretty inspiring. And the fact that we can play a part of that here in Beaufort County with our own tax dollars is really, I think, true leadership. And like you said, with other counties looking to follow the lead of Charleston and Beaufort with funding programs and putting some skin in the game, we'll look to Jasper, we'll look to Berkeley, we'll look to Greenville and see how we can, be an example, but also learn from the way they're starting programs brand new and offer improvements along the way. So thank you so much. One more chance for questions if there's any others from the group, but I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Kate, this is Mac Bennett. Patrick, just interested in kind of the statewide perspective, but of all the land in South Carolina, what is the percentage that is protected in some way? Do you have that figure?
I do, roughly. So right now we are at 3 million. So we are at 15%.
15%.
Yeah, and that's all types of protection.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you may hear that there's a 30 by 30 push by the current administration to protect 30% of all land by 2030. And so, everybody said, well, where are we in South Carolina? And the answer to that is we're halfway there. So could we double all conservation to date by 2030? That's probably a tall multi-billion dollar order. But it's good to know that, we're halfway there and it's not totally insurmountable on some time frame.
Thank you.
All right.
What was the goal? Who set that goal? I'm sorry, 30 by 30. Who was that? The federal government? Federal government.
The federal government.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm slow.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you,
And just one last comment. I was sitting around with an older gentleman who was one of the early adopters of the Ace Basin back when nobody thought that was a crazy idea. And he was opining that this was the next Ace Basin. that we were all watching Slater and a couple of the other early adopters of the next day basin, which never occurs to me because I'm down in the weeds doing paperwork all the time. But that was a really exciting idea, right? That something that big and successful and internationally renowned was happening in Beaufort, Jasper, and Hampton County.
How can we help the Southern Coastal Biodiversity Project?
I would love to find a parcel that Rural and Critical could partner with all of the other partners, the state and federal partners. And we could drill down on that offline and find like the good model project where everybody can work together.
Great.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Moore, and feel free to visit us at our meeting. We're open to the public. You can join us anytime.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 7, is that you?
I have item 7, just our monthly conversation among the board in person and here. And I have some slides, but I'm going to talk through some ideas. First is a welcome to our newest board member, Tom. Tom, if you want to introduce yourself, I'll put you on the spot, but we're happy to have you from District 6.
Hi, I first heard of this program. I've lived here going on 11 years. I live in Sun City. And I guess at that time it was something in a newspaper, maybe it came in the mail that they wanted to increase taxes by a half a penny or something like that. And I looked a little further into it. And what it was is they articulated that it was the Rural and Critical Lands Preservation Board. I said, what a great idea, to allocate this stuff, this land, and provide for not only our generation, but for future generations and visitors also. Because this is not only my opinion, but this whole low country is a unique and beautiful place. I've lived all over this country, and this is the most beautiful place I've ever lived in. I've lived in the desert, I've lived in Southern California, etc. And so when I saw that, I said to myself, what a great idea, and I've always voted for it. And I look at the signs every time I'm, going by and whatever. So I'm just glad to be part of this, and I'm looking at all this stuff, and I've got a lot to learn. I've got a lot to learn. But thank you.
I want to apologize for not introducing you earlier myself.
That's all right.
I'm going to get that staff to do his name tag, so like me
Yes.
can remember.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. This is a good point of discussion for our meetings, and when we're all in person, there's lots of camaraderie. But we'll get back there. We were there for a little bit. We'll get back. For those of you on the computer, welcome to Tom, and we're happy you're on the board as well. We all have lots to learn, so we look forward to learning together. The second update I have for you is just a reminder that Q3 applications close at the end of September. So if you've been approached by property owners, if you've had your eye on properties that need to be protected in your opinion, Q3 closes September 30th. So I would encourage you to reach out to me or Amanda and talk to us about the properties that you are curious about personally, or if you've talked to property owners who are curious about the program, be sure to connect them. Applications, if we're going to start reviewing new applications in October, the deadline is at the end of this month. So just want to make sure everybody is aware of that. We have had a couple inquiries this quarter from some property owners on Hilton Head and in Bluffton, and are constantly trying to be proactive with our approach. So definitely talk to me or Amanda after the meeting if other properties come to mind for you. Other kind of scheduling and logistics, we are expecting some appraisals back at mid-September for the properties that y'all approved for due diligence in Q1. So look forward to reviewing that information with you and some early term sheets for potential easements in October. We'll share that with y'all for feedback and continue on with the due diligence process there. And we're received bids for the quarter 2 appraisals, so we can start due diligence for the projects that y'all recommended in quarter 2. With respect to remaining fall schedule, we've talked a lot about fall field trips and have identified landowners in districts 1, 3, and 6 who are interested in hosting field trips. So we'll get those on the calendar as best we can for the fall. And also just want to talk about some schedule things that Amanda brought to our attention with respect to our November 11th meeting falling on Veterans Day. And what I would ask is, unless there's immediate consensus, is the county open that day? No, so the county is closed on November 11th. So we need to move our regularly scheduled Thursday meeting. We can move it forward Thursday, back a Thursday, or forward one day and back one day to Wednesday or Friday of that week. And unless y'all all have a unanimously strong opinion right now, I guess my request would be that you'd email or call me after this meeting with your preference. A week prior to keep it on a Thursday, a week later to keep it on a Thursday, or if you're flexible with your days of the week, Wednesday prior or Friday after the 10th or the 12th.
Could we make that decision now if people don't have the calendar?
Yeah.
The issue?
We can if you want, but we could also probably spend a lot of time talking about calendars.
Yeah.
I just want to be sensitive to that. Does anybody have any strong opinions? Walter, do you?
Oh, I agree with me. Before
Don't move it to Friday.
Okay. All right, that's good. I like strong opinions. Friday's off the list. Thursday before, Thursday after, or Wednesday immediately prior.
I would do like you said, don't email.
Okay,
Got it.
perfect.
Yeah, I
And
can definitely tell. I cannot make it the following Thursday. That's my monthly board meeting.
Okay.
I like the Wednesday before. How does that suit everybody?
I'm flexible. I can do Wednesday the 10th or 4th, Thursday the 4th, either one.
I'll be out of the state the week of October 14th, so the week before would be better for me.
So we're talking about November 11th. And again, as the feedback I'm hearing is that Friday is definitely out. So what I'd like you to do is let me know if the 4th of November or the 10th of November is your preference. And you can just do so after the meeting.
Okay.
Thank you. Next month, thinking about October 14th and following up on some things that Patrick brought up, other counties are looking to do land conservation funding. Charleston County, as you know, funds their land program with sales tax. We fund ours with property tax. Other counties are looking, Greenville just appropriated some general funds. But Amanda, Stephanie, and I will be speaking next October at a planning association conference with planners from all across the state of South Carolina talking about the rural and critical programs, which I think is a great opportunity to talk about the work that we do in Beaufort County and hopefully serve as a model for some of those other counties that are looking to do that. And I know the Trust for Public Land that we regularly work with here in Beaufort County is also talking to our immediate neighbors in Jasper. So we've got lots of good stuff in the mix, and I hope that builds on what Patrick shared as far as, there's never been a better time for this landscape conservation opportunity we find ourselves on the precipice of. And then a final monthly note is just that we're continuing to pursue all available partner funds. You heard the theme of leverage. Want to make y'all aware, we do expect a new funding opportunity with the NRCS in the fall, and our next Conservation Bank deadline is in January of 2022. So as you all come across grant opportunities, don't hesitate. Ask me, I can look into it to see if anything's applicable, but we're keeping all of those deadlines and things on our radar. Does anybody have any questions or any kind of monthly update they'd like to share? Yeah, Ryan.
Quick question. So I think I may have mentioned a couple months ago that I'm moving from Hilton Head to Bluffton, and I I recognize I'm in District 8 right now, and I think 7 is vacant. I was curious if any official action needs to take place for me to just slide into that seat, so it's more
It's
relevant
done.
for me.
Your move.
Your move.
Your move.
Oh, I am? Okay, good. Awesome.
Wasn't that is so easy? Don't you want the rest of your move to be that easy?
I know, my house is empty behind me, and it's going back and forth, so it's I appreciate that ease. Thank you.
We're gonna have to replace you in the old district, but that's okay.
Mhm.
Kate, when will we have another quarterly financial report due?
Next month.
Next month.
That's my question. Who was that?
That's Art.
Okay. There you go. I know it was you.
Yeah. Kate, when will we have another financial report from on the status of the funding?
In October, at our October meeting, we'll have an update from finance. We're also looking to have another guest speaker in October or November. So stay in touch if you have strong feelings about that. Otherwise, we'll hear from finance and a guest speaker in October.
Okay.
All right. That's all I have.
That's all you have.
Walter.
Okay. So, do we have to go to executive session?
We do.
Okay. Do we have to make a motion? Okay, let's have a motion to move into executive session from someone.
I so move.
Move.
Second.
Second. So we're currently into executive session. I don't think we have any outsiders here, so we're good.
Yeah, so I think we're good. We're in executive session.
Do you mind pulling up my
Just make sure.
slides?
Yeah, give me a minute. I gotta pull up some slides, so hang on.
was the first project, the Middle Road one, that we not recommend this for any further action.
Second,
Who was that?
Mac.
Matt?
Zach, thank you. Okay.
It's been moved and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Is any opposed?
Opposed? Abstain.
You, okay. Abstain. Otherwise, everybody was good. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, project number 2, anybody have a,
I would propose that we also not move forward with the Linden project, as it does not represent a priority under the green print strategy that we have adopted.
I second.
I second.
it's been moved that we do not make any movement on the second project. And second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Abstain again.
Okay. With the motion on both, I guess, is there, the motion applies to fee and PDR, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct. All right.
Just for your information, the reason I'm abstaining because there was the third option I wanted was to talk to both landowners. See if there was another option to split. They seem so similar to the project, and I wanted to know whether they would deal with one of them instead of two of them. And that was another option, so, you know, we're looking forward to it.
All right.
You were talking about the 9.5 acres.
You're talking about both?
Both of them.
Both of them, just to resubmit.
Yeah.
Well, my understanding is that those will be recommendations to the Natural Resource Committee, and if either applicant holds the application, they can be resubmitted on an individual basis. So we'll see if that's something, it's not like Planning Commission where there's like a statute of like you can't resubmit until a year has gone by or something like that. So if Natural Resources Committee agrees with y'all, the applicants will certainly have the opportunity to do both of those things. Is that procedurally correct, Amanda?
Yeah.
Okay.
And just don't forget about sending Kate an email about the November meeting, what y'all would rather do for November. You know, changing that date, if y'all would remember to email her your all's dates. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
I want to thank your expertise. You got a lot of expertise. I mean,
Yeah.
y'all guys are good. I don't have to do much. And I want to thank staff for bringing in our presenter today, which was very informative. I think we got a hot day in the future. Thank you all so much.
I need a motion and a second to end.
I so moved.
Okay.
Got it by one time.
Okay.
It's been moved and second to adjourn the meeting. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.